I'm a freestyle footballer, I'm always on the move, and I've always wanted a better smile. Invisalign suits me and my lifestyle completely. You can hardly see them. When I look at my before and current pictures, it blows my mind every time. I'm so impressed.
Discover why over 6 million people have chosen Invisalign clear aligners to straighten their smile. Find us in the Atrium in Westfield, London. Suitability for treatment determined by an Invisalign doctor.
And I think those are the kinds of things, what's going on with monetary policy, what's going on with trade, how that's all linked. That has the potential to slow down growth if it's not handled correctly over time.
Now the blame game begins. Trade tensions are growing, and we're going to get more about this from Bloomberg News senior trade editor Sarah McGregor. She joins us now from our Bloomberg News Bureau in Los Angeles. Sarah, thanks so much for taking the time again.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Here we are, new phase. This is more than just the U.S. blaming China, the China blaming U.S. This is more complicated with more layers, including somehow now the Federal Reserve is involved. So who's blaming who?
Yes, so I think things have really ratcheted up. You know, last week we saw real escalation of the trade war. And with that, we're starting to enter at least the beginnings of this zone that we've so far escaped, where it looks like the broader economy is starting to get hit. There really is some data out there to suggest that. I think, you know, of course, like anything, there's a bit of a lag. These tariffs started taking effect last year. And, you know, everyone sort of said, this is coming. If things don't get better, we might see a broader hit to the economy. And we're starting to see that in terms of, you know, the appreciation of the dollar. We see investment down, or at least not up the way that Trump has promised, and factories are there's a bit of a downshift, and that's all a worrying sign.
All right, so let's take it piece by piece. The factories downshift. Why would that then happen? Because of the tariffs?
So, you know, the dollars remain quite strong. And really with this trade war, I guess some of the irony of it is that, you know, there is some weakness in other currencies around the world. And so there's some dollar strength there. Of course, that's not great for manufacturers, American manufacturers. That makes their goods more expensive. And really, the tariffs have sort of driven up the costs of inputs for these factories. So, you know, as we put tariffs on these Chinese goods, that's, of course, what importers are going to have to pay that extra charge as they get those inputs in, whether it's steel or electronic components. And then exports, of course, are being hit by the stronger dollar, and as well as retaliation from countries like China and the EU and trading partners.
Let's dig into that a little bit, because last week the president made it very clear that he is pushing for a weaker dollar. He even tweeted about it, saying, I know it doesn't sound like something a president would want, but I want it. Does he have a point then, to your point, of how this is impacting manufacturing?
I mean, you could see why Trump would want a weaker dollar in terms of boosting manufacturers. Of course, it's been a long time since there's been any sort of talk, I guess, about the government or the Fed sort of intervening to influence that currency. And in fact, the U.S. had a strong dollar policy. So I think, you know, all of that comes as a bit of a surprise. And at the same time, we see, you know, the Trump administration formally labeling China a currency manipulator. And at the same time, the IMF, you know, came out with its report last week and really reiterated the fact that the yuan is largely in line with economic fundamentals. Of course, you know, the fund said China could do more to pursue a flexible exchange rate with less intervention, but it's neither overvalued or undervalued. So, you know, we see Trump toying with the idea of trying to, you know, get the dollar a bit weaker to help manufacturers, and criticizing China for its own interventions. But that's not necessarily the consensus on China's yuan right now.
Does China know how to play this blame game?
I think so. I think that, you know, both sides right now, there's a war of words as well. You know, it's not just the actions that are played out with this trade war. So in recent days, Chinese state media has unloaded on the U.S. for reneging on its promises, which, you know, Trump said he wasn't going to impose more tariffs while they did these good faith negotiations for a trade deal. And of course, come September 1st, the Trump administration is still saying it's going to move forward with this 10% tariff on the rest of Chinese imports. So, you know, there's fingers being pointed in all directions.
Okay, so let's just break it down then. The investments are souring, factories are dialing it back, China exports shifting away from the U.S. toward other markets. How does this help? How much of this is theater?
I mean, this is sort of the real deal right now, I think, with this data that's coming in. And we see it in notes like Goldman's, blaming, saying that there's a boost to recession concerns. And actually, we did our own survey last week, and we saw that recession fears, I believe it was in 2021, are up to 35% now amongst the median average of economists that we surveyed, which was up from our previous surveys. So, there's no one saying that this is a done deal yet, that there's a recession on the horizon. But I think just as things escalate and this data comes in showing again this weaker factory data, this investment souring, it just all sort of adds up, checking some, all the boxes towards what economists see as the recipe for a recession. And I think that's a pretty scary word, the R word.
Yeah, it really is. And we're going to keep watching it with you. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Bloomberg News senior trade editor Sarah McGregor, always shining a light on these sorts of issues, and we're going to continue to follow it with her. Just ahead on Bloomberg Politics, Policy, Power, and Law, pressure to act on impeachment proceedings, but there are risks for Democrats either way. Let's check the latest world and national headlines with Bloomberg's Martin DeCaro.
Thank you, Amy. The Trump administration's immigration crackdown is expanding. Immigrants legally living in the U.S. who rely on government aid will be penalized under a new policy designed to slow legal immigration by denying them green cards. The administration's top immigration official, Ken Cuccinelli, denied the administration is targeting Latinos.
We're not doing anything new here. We're simply making effective what Congress had already put on the books. So there's no reason for any particular group to feel like this is targeting them.
Under the expanded policy, immigrants who use public benefits such as Medicaid or food stamps for more than 12 months over a 36-month period will risk being categorized as too reliant on government services. Attorney General William Barr is promising to solve why there were what he calls serious irregularities at the Manhattan lockup where Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, and he vows to pursue justice for Epstein's victims.
Let me assure you that this case will continue on against anyone who was complicit with Epstein.
The FBI is now investigating why the accused sex trafficker wasn't on a suicide watch, although he had been earlier after an initial suicide attempt. Major changes are coming to the way the Trump administration will enforce the Endangered Species Act by peeling back regulations, but critics argue that'll drive more creatures to extinction. The Associated Press reports blanket protections for animals newly deemed threatened will come to an end, and federal authorities will now consider the economic cost of protecting particular species. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Martin DeCaro.
When someone tells you to have a great day, do you have the urge to answer, "Of course I will"? This might be why.
How did that change the conversation with Facebook saying, here's what we want to do?
Carol Massar, Jason Kelly, and Bloomberg Business Week.
Who's doing it right from a sector perspective?
Better information.
What do you make of Bitcoin?
For a better than great day.
It's getting really popular.
Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation